In 48 BC, as the Roman world convulsed with civil war, the fate of Egypt rested in the hands of a 21-year-old queen in exile. Cleopatra VII, Philopator, daughter of Ptolemy XII, Auletes, had been driven from Alexandria by her brother and co-ruler Ptolemy XIII. Civil war within the Ptolemaic dynasty was nothing new. But Cleopatra faced not just sibling rivalry, she faced survival. The Ptolemies, weakened by generations of incestuous marriages and court intrigues, were puppets of rival factions vying for Alexandria's wealth. Cleopatra, educated in Greek rhetoric and statecraft, refused to be sidelined. From the Syrian borderlands, she rallied mercenaries and local chieftains, forging a modest force to challenge Ptolemy's grip on the throne. Exiled to the Syrian borderlands, she began raising an army to reclaim her throne. But her restoration would come not from the east. It would arrive in the form of Rome's most powerful man, Gaius Julius Caesar. Caesar arrived in Alexandria in pursuit of Pompey the Great, his rival in Rome's civil war. But Pompey was already dead, murdered by Ptolemy's advisors hoping to earn Caesar's favor. Instead, they earned his disgust. Caesar, appalled by the dishonor, had the killers executed and declared his intention to mediate the Ptolemaic conflict. Cleopatra seized the moment. According to Plutarch, she had herself smuggled into Caesar's chambers, possibly inside a rug or a linen sack. Her audacity was matched by her intellect. Fluent in Greek, Egyptian, and several other languages, she presented herself as Egypt's rightful ruler, charming Caesar with her elegance. What mattered more than the method was the result. She captivated him. Caesar, then aged 52, was drawn not only by her beauty, but to her wit, her command of multiple languages, and her political acumen. Their alliance was swift, pragmatic. Caesar wanted stability in Egypt, a key source of grain. Egypt supplied 1/3 of Rome's grain, vital for feeding the city's masses and securing Caesar's political base. Cleopatra wanted her throne. The Alexandrian War followed. Caesar, outnumbered, fortified the royal palace, fending off Ptolemy's generals Achilles in a brutal street fight. Fires ravaged Alexandria's library district, a cultural tragedy blamed on Caesar's tactics. For months, Caesar and Cleopatra held out in the royal quarter against Ptolemy's forces. Roman reinforcements led by Mithridates of Pergamum broke the siege. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile trying to flee. Cleopatra was restored as queen, co-ruling with her younger brother Ptolemy XIV, who died under unclear circumstances around 44 BC, leaving her the sole ruler. What began as alliance quickly became personal. Cleopatra bore Caesar a son, Ptolemy XV, better known as Caesarion. For Cleopatra, this child was more than a dynastic heir. He was a potential claim to Roman legitimacy. Caesar never publicly acknowledged the boy, but he did not deny him either. Cleopatra visited Rome in 46 and 44 BC, residing in Caesar's villa across the Tiber. In 46 BC, she joined Caesar's triumph celebrations, negotiating trade and military pacts, but her foreign presence fueled gossip. By 44 BC, tensions grew as senators questioned her influence. Her presence scandalized many senators. A golden statue of her was erected in the temple of Venus Gentrix, drew the and fascination. Caesar, meanwhile, was reshaping Rome, reforming the calendar and expanding the Senate and amassing honors that resembled monarchy. His Julian calendar, inspired by Egyptian astronomy, aligned Rome's year with the sun, a reform enduring for centuries. He increased the Senate to 900, filling it with loyalists, including provincials. Many feared he intended to become king. Cleopatra's presence added to those fears. If she was queen and Caesar had a son by her, what future awaited Rome? On the Ides of March, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was stabbed to death by senators who believed they were defending the Republic. Cleopatra, still in Rome, suddenly found herself vulnerable. With Caesar's protection gone, she faced hostility from senators like Cicero, who scorned her as a foreign monarch. She fled to Ostia, securing passage to Alexandria with Caesarion. She returned to Egypt with Caesarion, whose fate now lay in uncertainty. Back in Alexandria, she purged disloyal courtiers, replacing them with trusted allies to stabilize her regime. The question lingered, what now? Caesar had been her greatest ally. Without him, Egypt was exposed once more. The vacuum in Rome was quickly filled. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, and Gaius Octavius, Caesar's 18-year-old adopted son and heir, began a slow-motion power struggle. The Second Triumvirate, formalized in 43 BC, divided Rome's territories, with Antony taking the east, setting the stage for Cleopatra's next alliance. Cleopatra, meanwhile, turned her attention inward. She solidified her control, securing the loyalty of her court, and ensured Egypt remained stable amidst Rome's chaos. But she knew the Republic would not leave her in peace for long. For the next 3 years, Cleopatra ruled carefully. She promoted traditional Egyptian cults while maintaining the Hellenistic bureaucracy of the Ptolemies. She restored Isis temples, casting herself as the goddess's earthly embodiment, strengthening her divine legitimacy among Egyptians. Her court blended Greek and Egyptian elites, ensuring administrative continuity. She ruled as a divine monarch, Isis incarnate to her people, but a shrewd stateswoman to foreign envoys. While Caesarion was growing, Cleopatra invested in his education and image, training him in Greek philosophy, rhetoric, and Egyptian rituals, while commissioning statues depicting him as Horus, linking him to Caesar's legacy, portraying him as the legitimate successor, not only to Egypt, but implicitly to Caesar's legacy. In Rome, Octavian was consolidating power. Antony held the east. The Second Triumvirate, formed in 43 BC, divided the Roman world. Antony and Cleopatra's paths would soon converge, but Cleopatra's political skills had already been sharpened by her years with Caesar. She managed Nile floods to boost grain yields, securing Egypt's role as Rome's breadbasket, a leverage point for future negotiations. She understood Rome's ambition. She understood how to present herself as ally, as mother, as queen. Caesar had taught her that Rome responded not just to diplomacy, but to spectacle. The image of Cleopatra and Caesar is often romanticized, a dramatic seduction of a conqueror by an exotic queen, but the historical record is clearer. This was a political alliance first. Cleopatra needed Rome's protection. Caesar needed Egypt's wealth. They each used each other. That it developed into a personal relationship only depended on its consequences. Later Roman writers, hostile to monarchy and suspicious of foreign influence, portrayed Cleopatra as dangerous and manipulative. Their misogyny, rooted in Rome's ideas of male dominance, exaggerated her as a seductress to discredit her power, obscuring her diplomatic skill. Yet these depictions say more about Roman anxieties than about Cleopatra herself. She was no idle temptress. She was a ruler, rational, ruthless, and adaptive. Her correspondence with Caesar, implied by sources, discussed strategic matters like grain and military support, underscoring her role as a partner, not a pawn. Her relationship with Caesar helped her secure her throne, produce an heir, and position Egypt as a player in Rome's internal struggles. Caesar's death could have ended Cleopatra's influence, but instead it marked her emergence as a fully independent ruler. While Rome factions warred, she governed. She raised armies, she built alliances, she expanded Egypt's grain exports to Rome, stabilizing her treasury, and restored temples like Philae's Isis sanctuary, cementing her divine image. She promoted economic stability and prioritized temples and public works. Her navy, rebuilt under her command, bolstered coastal defenses, preparing for Rome's inevitable demands. Egypt prospered under her rule, even as Rome descended into further violence. When she would later meet Mark Antony, it would not be as a dependent, but as a sovereign equal. The foundations of that meeting were laid during her years with Caesar. She cultivated alliances with Eastern client kings, ensuring Egypt's regional influence, a strategy honed through Caesar's mentorship. She had learned how to engage Rome without submitting to it. She had learned how to be underestimated and how to turn that underestimation into power. The story of Caesar and Cleopatra is not just a tale of romance. It is a tale of strategy, survival, and the reshaping of empire. Cleopatra entered Caesar's world not as a pawn, but as a player. Her alliance with Rome's most powerful man gave her leverage, protection, and a claim to legitimacy. It gave her Caesarion, and with him a stake in the future. Rome would not accept that stake. Caesarion would eventually be killed by Octavian. Cleopatra would die by her own hand. Her later donations of Alexandria with Antony, granting eastern territories to her children, built on the ambition sparked with Caesar, but provoked Rome's wrath. But in those intervening years, she ruled not as Caesar's mistress, but as Egypt's queen. The foundations of her later legacy with Antony, with Octavian, and with history were laid during those crucial years. Caesar and Cleopatra met at a turning point in history. The Republic was dying. Empire loomed. Their alliance exposed Rome's hunger for wealth and power, accelerating its imperial transformation. Their story was not the beginning of decline. It was the revelation of how far Rome had already changed. And in that change, Cleopatra rose, not as a myth, but as a monarch.